And so when we talk about CCM, we like to talk about being secure from code to cloud and every step in between, from the time you write your first line of code to you check it in to it builds, deploys, and then is operationalized in your environment or in the cloud. We want to have automation that's basically taking what people have always done after the fact with humans and make just your risk and compliance a free outcome of doing good security.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our interview with Travis Howerton. Travis is a co-founder and chief executive officer at RegScale. Travis has over 23 years experience in the industry, from the Department of Energy to CTO of the National Nuclear Security Administration. And Travis holds multiple certifications, including CISSP, ETIL, PMP, Scrum Master, and many more. So Travis, welcome to our Risk Management Show podcast today.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. So we had a previous conversation with some of your guys, colleagues from RegScale, Anil Carmel and Larry Whiteside. And today we will discuss with you a topic of strengthening security protocols and compliance within cloud operations, and back it maybe to the role of cyber risk management. Today is a kind of worldwide security alert. Maybe it's a good topic to discuss, right?
Yep.
But before that, Travis, could you tell us a short story about your career path and what brought you to where you are at now, and what you guys at RegScale up to this day, just to remind us?
Sure. So I started spending about 20 years or so in national security, where, as you mentioned, I retired as the first chief technology officer of the U.S. nuclear weapons program. Went to Oak Ridge National Lab and got to lead their IT services division, and then went to Bechtel and led digital transformation globally there. And just kind of everywhere I went, risk and compliance programs always put the no in innovation. And so there's always this mountain of manual paperwork that you would go through to try to give yourself some assurance that you were in a acceptable risk posture. But that stuff was out of date the minute it was written, because systems are dynamic and these documents are static. And so it seems like we're spending a lot of energy as an industry creating paperwork that doesn't have a lot of value. At the same time, we were looking at industry trends in the cloud, where we're going to see everything is going to go more serverless, ephemeral systems that scale up, scale down. So you're going to have to hit a moving target. So it's going to be even more dynamic. We were also looking at trends. I call it the cyber Oprah effect, where every day somebody publishes a new framework you have to react to, or there's a new CISA directive or an OMB mandate or a European regulation. And it's just this overwhelming amount of scope. And at the same time, Moore's law is continuing unabated, where everything's going faster. And so how we got into this is we thought the current state was frustrating in the 2015 timeframe or so. And we thought by 2030, who's in position to hit a moving target at twice the scope at 4 to 8 times the speed? And we're like, nobody's going to be in position to do that. So somebody's got to do something different. And that's why we built RegScale, to do the same thing traditional GRC tools have always done, but do it in a very new and innovative way that embraces change, embraces cloud. And so we're very excited about where our position in the market, the approach we've taken. We're excited about customers who are innovating on our platform and have self-updating paperwork, and a lot of the pains that I dealt with in my career, they won't have to deal with in theirs. And so it's exciting to be part of that.
Mm-hmm. All right, awesome. So with the rapid pace of cloud adoption, less time is spent ensuring the systems are built and operated effectively and with proper cyber kind of clearness. And as a result, continuous controls systems like you say CCM has emerged as indispensable for ensuring both security and regulatory compliance. And today we actually have a huge worldwide outage of cloud system. Can you perhaps explain what happens today, and then do some respective to the topic we would like to discuss?
Yeah, it appears like it's just now breaking that CrowdStrike pushed some sort of update that caused a massive outage. So the recovery appears to be difficult from that. So you see things like that, and something went horribly wrong somewhere in their process. I don't know if this is an attack, if it's just somebody did something wrong by accident, too soon to tell, but the net effect of it is a massive worldwide outage because everybody uses CrowdStrike. They're a premier leader or one of them in their space for endpoint detection and other security things. And so the question is, how does something like that get out and get through the process? And so when we talk about CCM, we like to talk about being secure from code to cloud and every step in between, from the time you write your first line of code to you check it in to it builds, deploys, and then is operationalized in your environment or in the cloud. We want to have automation that's basically taking what people have always done after the fact with humans and make just your risk and compliance a free outcome of doing good security. So we want to move it more into the operations bucket and out of this after the fact thing that was a low value, high paying exercise. And so I think the extent to which you can drive good process, good QA, good security through every step of that from code to cloud, I think is how you get to where you can prevent some of these types of things in the future. But I don't want to say anything disparaging about CrowdStrike. It's new. They're a wonderful platform that have done a lot of good things for security. Wish them the best in trying to help their customers recover today.
Mhm. So can you explain in general the importance of security protocols in the cloud operations and how they contribute to overall cyber risk management?
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes from every step. And if Anil was here, I'm going to use his quote. And it used to be in security, we built things like an M&M, meaning it was hard on the outside and soft in the middle. And so you had these systems that were in a moat behind a firewall. And so we put a lot on the edge, but inside they were relatively flat networks you could move around. What we found is adversaries have got more sophisticated and more persistent. What we really need is the peanut M&M, or what's the now commonly referred to as zero trust, which is hardened at every layer. And so that's more of that secure from code to cloud. We want every line of code reviewed. We want to find security processes as early as we can in the code when they're cheaper and easier to fix. Then you want to harden the container and the environment that it's running in. And then you want to harden the infrastructure layer as you deploy it out to be used. And so every layer of that, you're just kind of stacking on defense and depth to make it very difficult for an adversary to get any hooks in. So you want to reduce your surface, reduce your vulnerability footprint, all those sorts of things. And so I think that's the modern state of the art, is trying to drive that zero trust architecture in the cloud and to get every single layer from code to cloud as secure as you can.
Mhm. So, what are some common challenges that organizations face when they try to strengthen the cloud security protocols? And specifically, how can they overcome these obstacles?
Yeah, I think several things. Like one's just scale dynamics. So the bigger you get, the harder it gets because the more things can go wrong and the more sprawl and the more amount of things you've got to deal with. So many customers we talk to are drowning in just vulnerability hell. They have more vulnerabilities than they can possibly patch, and it feels like a losing battle. And it's one of those every time you take something out, they dump more in the bucket, and the bucket's always overflowing. So it feels very difficult to try to keep up. And so getting better orchestration and workflow around that is sort of a core thing in the continuous controls monitoring world of how do you make sense? How do you prioritize it? How do you get better workflows between security operations and IT operations so you reduce your mean time to remediate? So I think that's a huge problem that we see in the industry. The second is a lot of these systems have to go through very burdensome processes and people feel it everywhere. If you want to go bring a new vendor on, like the amount of questionnaires we have to fill out today is staggering. And then the amount of paperwork you've got to do internally to onboard new third-party vendors, to launch new cloud services. It's just very paper intensive. And so we want to make that more compliance as code. You can check things, validate them against your risk posture in real time, take out all that delay, all that human burden, and then let humans just look at the results and make risk-based decisions, but not have to be gophers who are constantly chasing down information, collecting stuff. It's not a very satisfying job to just be a gopher chasing information. And what you want to do is use their brains and their expertise to put your organization in the best risk posture you can. So what we're trying to do is just flip that Pareto, where they're spending 80% of their time on just getting ready to make the decision, to where they're spending 80% of their time making good decisions and only 20% of their time having to collect the data.
Mhm. For our audience of risk and compliance managers, how does compliance risk play a role in enhancing security within the cloud environments, and what are the key regulations they need to be aware of?
Sure. So on the compliance side, it's mostly picking a framework that makes sense for you. And so if you're small, you might start with a SOC 2, which is a more approachable framework and set of controls. You might look at something like the Cloud Security Alliance and their framework. As you move sort of up the stack on the compliance side, you get into more of the gold standard type ones like FedRAMP, which are expensive and heavy, but they will also put you in a very robust risk posture in terms of the amount of controls you need to implement and the rigor that goes into a program like that. So I think it's figuring out where you are, starting on that continuum and locking stuff down. In the locking stuff down, there's multiple approaches you can take there. So you might follow the Department of Defense STIGs, which are basically lockdown guides for different things. Maybe CIS benchmarks make more sense for you. But basically, you want to look at what's your asset portfolio and be able to lock that down based off best practices, vendor configuration guides, and other things. That kind of gets you into a compliant posture. So my assets are locked down. I've implemented some control framework. I could get a third party to come in and audit me, get me a certification. That kind of gets you one place. The more sophisticated side is the threat and risk modeling of looking at what are the adversaries trying to do to you, what risk does that expose to you, and what controls are you going to put in place or strengthen to mitigate that risk. So it's more the threat hunting, risk modeling side of the world, moving more into the penetration test of having actual potential adversaries try to break in. And then trying to get more both quantitative and qualitative in your risk analysis. So trying to convert the bad things that can happen to you to dollars to make better risk-based decisions as a business or an organization on what we should be doing based off the risk we're concerned about, and trying to get as accurate there as you can. And so I'd say those pieces kind of all play together. The nice thing about a CCM platform is it lets you operationalize that at scale and get an integrated solution and set of answers with the least amount of labor and pain possible. So I think it's really bridging security, risk, and compliance for the first time in a way where you can operationalize all these things versus they're after the fact silo things that you got to try to put together in your head.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. So, in your experience, can you discuss a case study or an example where improved the security protocols mitigated successfully risk in cloud operation, and maybe with a kind of maybe without dropping names, just to give some case studies examples?
Yeah. So the best one I can give you, it's both the best savings as well as the largest scale. It was a large Department of Defense customer of ours. They're touting 200,000% process improvements using CCM in their overall architecture, where they built a software factory where you can build, deploy through CI/CD, and out the other side, you're hosting things in the cloud securely, and all your paperwork and risk documents are just updating themselves. And this was taking weeks and weeks of high paid people to come in and do this work for something that's going to atrophy pretty quick and only gets checked once a year, once every 3 years, when second line or the audit side can come around and look at it. Instead, they can be checking all the time, literally every day. The paperwork writes itself, the process accelerates itself. And so that's probably the best example I can give you. But the case studies are real and they go across industries. We've seen it in finance, we're seeing it in energy sector, retail, high tech, anywhere where you have a regulatory burden or a robust risk mandate coming to you for cybersecurity, these types of tools can just really optimize your workflows and get you the same sorts of outcomes. So we're excited about it. I think I'm thankful for the original GRC tool vendors because what they did is really define the problem well. And I think what CCM is the next evolutionary step in the technology to get those outcomes in a much more cost-effective, streamlined, and compelling way. And so that's what we're focused on today is trying to get more customers, more outcomes like that. And it's cool to see more CCM, CCA vendors entering the market, giving customers choice and differentiated approaches on how you do it. But we do think it's the future because cloud's the future. And if you want to embrace change in that speed, while staying compliant and reducing your risk posture, you're going to have to do something different. And there's a growing suite of tools that give you those options.
Awesome. So let's discuss how the advancement in technologies and such as AI and machine learning influence the development and implementation of security protocols and in cloud computing in your space of continuous control monitoring.
Yep. And so we've done traditionally, we're doing a lot of things with compliance as code, using NIST, OSCAL, and other things. And that gives us a basis for doing automated checks and other things. And that's great for technical controls for the most part. And so it gives you a great opportunity to automate many of your technical controls, which is where a lot of your risk is. But also you have administrative controls, and those are a lot harder to apply automation to through traditional approaches. What AI is opening up is getting out of the stare and compare exercises, where it can look at what's the control asking for, what did you say you did, what evidence did you provide, and it's like having a virtual Deloitte KPMG auditor standing over your shoulder saying, no, that's not reasonable. You only addressed 4/5 of that control. And so we're seeing some really cool use cases of AI where it's helping with doing automated audits or assessments. It's helping with control authoring. It's helping with validating the quality of that control. So when you look at like a lot of what the audit's doing is trying to drive quality into the process. Are we actually doing it? How do we know? Fix things, drive continuous improvement. A lot of that quality function that you see folks doing today, AI could be a massive driver for that. But I don't see it as a driver as it's replacing large amounts of humans today. What I see it doing is supercharging humans, where do you really only want to look at something once every 3 years? Is that a reasonable risk posture? Probably not. But I probably can't get more money from my board to go hire an army of people either. So how do I get more eyeballs on something in a cost-effective way? AI could do that, surface the results to the same number of humans who are getting a lot more breadth, right? And so it's how do we create sort of compliance superheroes and supercharge them with better technology? Because I don't know about you, but I don't want a computer making risk-based strategic decisions for my company. I don't know anybody who does, but I don't want those smart humans wasting all their time sifting through mountains of paper when the AI can sort of summarize things for them. So I think it's going to be a productivity boost in the extreme in the near term.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Travis, I would like to ask you your personal point of view. What is the major misconception in this CCM space that you kind of strongly disagree with?
I think one major misconception is people are still viewing it through the GRC lens, which makes sense because we solve a lot of the same problems. But it also comes with certain connotations, which is really expensive licensing, insanely manual. My staff hate using it because it's another duty as assigned. And so you have all this mental model of pain associated with GRC. What I'd ask is like flip it to outcomes. The outcomes GRC was going for are noble and correct, right? It's wanting to make sure that you are in a good space with your regulators, that you're following best practice, that you are actively thinking about and managing risk to your organization. So all the things it's trying to do, that you have good governance and you make the correct decisions, and those are traceable, and people are held accountable. All those things are good outcomes. There's just a better way to do them today, which is not a knock on legacy GRC vendors. Like, you kind of, each generation stands on the shoulders of giants before it. There's just new technology in place that allows more innovative approaches that weren't possible 20 years ago when the Archers and ServiceNow tools of the world came along in the GRC space. So I think just getting past that mental perception of this is millions of dollars and takes years and is insanely manual and it's only for the biggest of the big, I think is the wrong mental model. We have some very small companies using CCM technology to get regulations that were outside their reach. They could have never afforded to go get a FedRAMP or something at their size, and now they can, because they can bring better technology, better process, better approach. And so that's the misconception that I would want to flip is GRC is not bad. The outcomes are good. There's just better ways to do them today. And people should start exploring CCM and CCA and see what's the best fit for their requirements.
All right. So, Travis, let's summarize our interview for someone who is listening to it and would like to walk away with one or two major takeaways. What would that be?
I think when the future, I had an old boss when I was at Oak Ridge National Lab who said the best plans start with the truth. The truth is that 2030 world I drew out at the beginning is coming quickly. And so you're going to have to deal with more speed, moving target, greater scope. It's happening. And so it's one of those, the number one thing that I tell people is don't be an ostrich. Don't put your head in the sand and deny that it's happening. It's going to happen to you. So you've got to have a strategy in place. So what I'd say, not a RegScale pitch, just put some strategy in place for how you're going to deal with this problem that's coming at you. And two, start picking tools and other things that might be able to make a material difference for you. You can get started, you can pilot things free, do some market research, talk to your analysts and others. But the problem is coming fast. It's probably already painful in your environment. And so if you want some hope and a better way, start looking at, how do I solve this problem for the future? How do I use technology in a more innovative way to get me out of just the morass many organizations are in, trying to throw bodies at this and spreadsheets at it? There's a better way. And so I just say, whatever tools you explore, just get started and have a strategy.
Fantastic. That were all my questions. Perhaps if I forgot to ask you some specific question that you would like to, that would be useful for our audience, please go ahead.
Oh, I think you covered the waterfront pretty well. What I'd say is it's an exciting time to be in cybersecurity. Yeah, it's the capabilities, I spent most of my career where people didn't care about cyber. It was hard to even get them to show up to your meetings, much less do the right thing. Now most people realize cybersecurity is a board level risk, right? The SEC's making it a disclosure level risk to your company. And so people take cyber serious. The tooling's never been better. The capabilities are still evolving exponentially fast. So we're getting to this space where things that weren't possible before are now with technology. And so the thing I always tell people is just to embrace the future. It's going to happen whether you participate in it or not. If you participate in it, it'll be better for your career, better financially for you, better for your company. And so just embrace these trends. It's an exciting time to be a technology professional, and I look forward to seeing sort of what the future holds for security.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Travis. And I wish you and your company great success. And people and members, please sign up to our site at globalriskcommunity.com and also to our podcast, Risk Management Show, where you can find many more such interviews with global leaders all over the world. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, Boris.